you know, I can hear the safety perspective too with fire, water, drainage. I just think that we do need that time to fully investigate. Thank you.
I'm not sure I want to go after first. My name is Len Mann. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak about it. I want to make this as brief as possible. The decision to rezone the 19-acre parcel on the south side is based on information. I do not believe enough information has been presented to either the board or village residents. 2+4 developers have provided several documents and a brief presentation, and for me this is not sufficient, as I cannot support a project without greater detail. I would like to do so, but I need more information. An ad hoc committee of homeowners would like to meet with the developers to talk about our concerns and present possible modifications to the plan. By doing so, we hope to be, as Ms. Kimmel, the CEO, has said, a good neighbor. We want to be a good neighbor. But this can only be accomplished by working with the affected tax-paying residents. So I ask the board tonight to take no action at this time until more information is provided by the developers. Thank you very much.
As Jerry Houseworth, 110 Montrose Avenue, which is the turnpike, directly across from the wood lot. So, as Mr. By says, Lynn just stated, you know, this came out of the back door. County, I don't know who else, and from September 1st. How fast September's gone, here we are, October 1st. And we've created questions, interest. But for you to just go and make a decision with no regard to residents, and it's not just the people that border the property, it is every resident. We'd like to see some numbers, see some reports, see some stuff. I'm not real good at math, I'm only an engineer, but I don't know how you add up all this and make it pay for itself. Transportation is an issue. I think safety is an issue, you know. To me, I call it a rubber stamp. You know, you have services on 38, you can't get off that hill. If you already can only pay $600 a month rent, I guess you're not driving a car. It's not. I feel the need and I understand where people are coming from, but I've got 2 pieces of property I'm working on right now because of water. And it didn't look like what it does now when I bought it 35 years ago. And I've never seen my taxes go down. I haven't seen my sewer go down. So, I would ask you to table it too. Let's get some real information that we can all share. And I do not understand the need. Where the need comes from. Thank you. Go ahead.
My name is Eileen, and I'm not much of a public speaker, so if I seem a little nervous, I am. I'm a public health nurse. I'm a nurse. I've been a nurse for a long, long time. And I do understand the financial need of a lot of people. I work in public health, and I have a lot of sympathy for them. But but I'd like to present a different side of the story. I've lived in Owego for 40 years, okay? I live in the Hallstead development. My taxes are 50% of the mortgage payment, okay? Close to $500 a month. I understand $500 a month for mortgage or rent is high to some people, but I can't afford any more taxes either. It's expensive to live where I live. I've done it for 40 years, working 2 jobs in the road. I've worked 20 years to try to keep the house afloat. I'm a little concerned about how things are moving and how it's going to impact my property value. It may seem a little bit selfish, but if you've worked as hard as I have to be where I am right now, you would understand my concerns also. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Sue Kimmel, and I am the president of 2+4 Construction. We are currently under option with the Nobilettis for the property. I just want to review with the board what we are asking, what the Nobilettis are asking for. Currently, that property is zoned as an R2. We could build a project today as of right. The R3 zone under your own code would give us relief from having to subdivide into 20 individual lots that would have the same ownership. That would be 20 individual tax parcels, 20 individual surveys, 20 individual. Your village code does not require site plan approval for this type of housing, for the code as it is currently zoned. But I am here to say that I was true to my word when I met with the neighbors. We do want to get the questions answered. We do want to be good neighbors. We do want to find solutions to their concerns. And I will continue to make myself available to meet with the neighbors, to look at options. We would love to find a solution, if not just a walking solution, to get from our property through the right-of-way to the bridge. That would be something that could even be benefit to the neighbors above us. So I just wanted to make sure everybody was aware of the process, what would have to happen between now and actually being able to build the project. And again, the project today could be built in the zone as it's zoned as of right. But I publicly want to go on record saying that I will continue to work with the neighbors before we submit building plans for a permit to try to get as many of their concerns answered as we can.
Are you asking for tax abatement, free taxes for your building? And are you
Do
going
you want me
to,
to respond to the public, or it's up to you? Up to them.
they should be telling us anyway, Maya. Is there a tax abatement? I mean, that's the general public's concern.
Maybe I can take the lead on that, on the question on that. I think the concern exists, and so I'm a banker, so I look at things from a financial perspective. And I think the concern exists that 40 properties at the proposed $25,000 in increased tax revenue to the village works out to $625 a year. And I think that there is a valid concern that maybe that's, I don't know where that projection came from, but I'm pretty sure that everyone who owns a property here is paying more than $625 per year to the village.
So the question is, would we be seeking a pilot, which is payment in lieu of tax, it's a forgiveness? Yes, we would be working with the IDA for predictability. Currently, under real property law 581A, we are assessed under the income approach. So the state of New York recognizes the fact that I'm not a market rate owner. I can't raise my rents without their approval. I can't take money out of the property without their approval. I have to set aside money not only in a replacement reserve, but also in an operating reserve. And that's money I've collected in rent that I'm required to set aside, and I need their approval to use that money. So whether we go a pilot or whether we go 581A, By law, 581 has to be followed, and without getting too technical, what happens is every year I have to sit with the assessor and he looks at our books from the year before. If we have a bad snow event and I spend a whole lot of money on snow plowing and taking snow, because that whole road is mine. That's not a public road, it's a private road, privately maintained, privately plowed. If I spend a whole lot of money on snow removal, the next year my taxes will be less. Under the pilot, it's a graduated payment with increases, and it's predictable for me and for the municipality.
And just to be clear, so the proposed $25,000.
Louder,
I'm sorry, can you hear me now? There, can you hear me now?
I can hear you, they can't. I'll try to repeat the question.
Okay, so, is that a $25,000 total payment to all the taxing entities?
That is correct.
Right, okay.
Mr. Mayor, may I throw in something real quickly?
Sure.
So the calculations are, that I've done on that, $24,000 for the pilot would be, the school would get $11,256, the village would get $7,560, and the town and county would get $5,184. Done.
Hello. Leanne Tenney, Tioga County Economic Development and Planning. First, I want to say the housing study is available online. Just go on to Tioga County NY, go to Economic Development and Planning, the housing study is there. It's been there for 6 or 7 months.
But we're building that house. It's already being constructed. That's where everybody's confused.
What I'm addressing is you said if you'd like to see the study. The study is available online. So just go to TiogaCountyNY.com and you'll be able to find the study. And in this study, by the way, it addresses a need greater than the 40 units that are being proposed and the Owego Gardens. So, yes, you're right, 2 projects. But if you take a look at the study, and you'll see that there is a greater demand than even what's being built at this point. And that's why, we're looking at this project even to begin with. Also, just make sure everybody understands that these are working family housing units. So you have to be able to show evidence that you can pay the rent to live there. So it's not so we're going to have to provide transportation or whatever. That would apply only to those units that are being designated for Achieve, the 10 units, and they're handling that transportation. So, that again, just be clear that we're talking about nurses. We're talking about the young engineer at Lockheed Martin that's making, 25 or 30,000 a year. Those are the sorts of people that we're talking about living here. So I want to make sure everybody's clear on that point. And I just want to say this. While the village of Owego has a stock of historic homes as well as a goal to increase housing values, it is still necessary for the village to attract individuals and families of all income levels and housing needs. Establishing mixed-income housing developments encourages the diversity that will make visitors and residents of all ages, abilities, and incomes feel welcome in the village. I didn't write that. The Village of Owego wrote that. That's in the village's comprehensive plan. And again, that's available online if you want to go out and take a look. Again, plan, it's out there. Take a look at it. The village has said, this is what we want. It goes on to talk about the goal. And the goal is to work to attract quality market rate mixed income developments that promote stable, economically healthy neighborhoods. Again, not my words, these are village words. And strategies. The village should partner with various agencies to provide a variety of housing options for residents. Court developers in a high-density residential mixed target area just west of downtown. All of this is in the Owego plan.
already. We're not making it up. It's what's out there already. In addition, the rezone would address several goals that are outlined in the county strategic plan, which includes encourage and increase housing development that is out of the flood zone, increase and diversify housing stock to offer more alternate types, especially at higher densities, make connections with more high-density housing developments. Again, this plan was put together in 2017. This is something that we looked ahead at and said, what do we need in the county? All identified here. It's not just a spur-of-the-moment thing. This has been well thought out. Again, the housing study, as I mentioned, is online. You can go in and take a look at everything. It talks about not just rental, it talks about single-family housing, it talks about elder housing. It's a pretty good study, and it was, to answer the question, who did the study, it was contracted by the IDA, the LDC, and Tiger Opportunities to pay to have the study done. So, an independent source we contracted with to have it looked at. So, again, we're not making it up as we go along here. This is something that we've been really studying for some time now. Clearly, there have been a lot of options. Let's see, hang on here. Also identified in the housing study are the barriers for housing in the county, which includes the lack of potential sites, and we've heard about that already. If you take a look at, we've got the maps there that show every R2 zone property in the village, and then broken out from that, every R2 that's 5 acres or more, and then 5 acres or more that's located out of the flood zone. And then also R3 project properties were the same. There are literally not more than 3 properties available to do this kind of development. They're just not out there. So I'm happy to share those maps as well. Anytime, just let me know. I'm happy to share that information with you. Clearly, there are not a lot of options to meet this this type of project that's been identified. The solution, but the main thing I think you'll see from the housing study is that the solution is not going to be simple. It's not going to be one thing that's going to fix the housing situation in the village or across the county. It's going to have to be a many-pronged approach, and including the rental and single-family improvements. And I'm hoping that with the DRI, somebody mentioned the funding that's coming, that we'll be able to address not only this type of housing with the VOO Board Gardens too, but single-family housing too. We're looking to be able to, hopefully, can't speak for the committee yet, but to address possibilities or options for single-family homeowners to make improvements, make money available for single-family homeowners to make improvements to their properties as well. It's not just about working family housing. It's about single-family housing. It's about elder. It's a very big picture. The rezone of the Nobiletti property would be an important step toward achieving the village's vision. And remember that it's improving housing throughout the village while making visitors and residents of all ages, abilities, and incomes feel welcome. And I know there's a lot of talk about, well, we just want to know what's going on. And, I've had the opportunity of working with Sue over the last couple of months. And it isn't something that's just popped up, as I mentioned. We've been looking at it for some time, trying to identify even a site that would be appropriate. But on her own suggestion, Sue asked to have a meeting with the residents here to talk about what the project is, to help to explain so people could understand what it is. I think there were a lot of people here. I think there were a lot of questions answered. And just knowing, having worked with her to this point, that I'm sure she would welcome continued discussion. The challenge for her at this point is that you can spend a lot of money on engineering on what ifs. And for 2+4 to be able to put, a huge amount of money into engineering before they know whether they can even consider the project in this location, that's something she's going to have to weigh as well. So just be aware that that's part of the equation is, you know, do you design the project to its full extent, not knowing whether it's going to be able to be built or not. So please kind of keep that in mind. But I am confident to say that, you know, if you want to have another sit down, if you want to really sit down and talk with 2+4 about the project, I'm sure, you know, Sue would welcome the opportunity to do that again. And I agree, quite frankly, that the board should not be making a decision on this tonight. There's no doubt about that in my mind. They need to hear the public comment and consider it. And when you say make an informed decision, they do have a good deal of information that's been provided to them. They're not just guessing at this. They do have a lot of information that's been put forward to them. So I agree. They should hold off on making a decision, which I think ultimately you will. And, you know, if there's questions you need answered, certainly, I think there will be here, or Sue will be here to answer whatever those questions are. Okay? Anything right now? No? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else for the public hearing?
You guys probably have seen. My name's Kurt Kimmerling. I have 118 Southside, next to the big project, VOO Gardens. My big concern is flooding, as you heard from me before. And the same thing goes with this other project. As you've heard before, I'm not against any of the progresses that we're trying to make here. I think it's good for the area. I think we've, over the years, have turned away a lot of progress in the name of keeping our small town. I think there's need for housing. I do believe that, you know, being a landlord, that apartments in this area have been at its cost for the last 10 years, steady the same. I have not been able to raise, nor would I want to, because I want to keep my tenants. It's not like where I'm from in LA, where it's just, or any place else in the whole country, how prices go. But with that said, it's hard to ask for any housing that's less than what it is today, because we can't even keep the houses that we have and make the payments on the taxes. My concern is with IDA, and I guess I'm not learned on what they represent for us. But my understanding for them was that they're supposed to attract businesses and corporations to this area to provide jobs and entice them with the tax incentive. And for these kind of projects, the one next door to me, and this one we're talking about here, I feel like we're falling short on what it's costing us as village taxpayers in the long run. The project next door to me, we got, what is that, another 62 units plus 6 townhouses with 4 units in each townhouse, all with this special tax incentive. We had one road going up to that at this point, and from the last meeting I came to, they indicated that that road was going to be plowed by the village, which in some case I feel like that's a benefit for the people that's living up there. Thank God, because if there's somebody who has a heart attack up there and it's left up to some private contractor and the storm's too great, and he says, I'm going to wait till the storm's over, everybody's stranded up there. We need to have the roads open, and only one road. With this project, from what I was just told, it's going to be private. Ooh, what happens there? How do those people get out? And it's our ambulances, and it's all our volunteers, and it's our taxpayer dollars. It's our hydrants, it's our streetlights.
And it doesn't seem like the costs are there for us to actually maintain. It's actually gonna seem to me like it's gonna be a deficit. My taxes have kept going up in my bill, and the school taxes and the water bill. So those are my concerns. My concerns are flooding. I mean, I know going over to that area and seeing what's been going on since the last several rain instances, it's not pretty over there, just like it's not pretty in my place. They just fixed my place, and it's already busted out down at the bottom. So what are we creating, and what are the guarantees on either project that they're going to be there for us to fix any problems that occur, and fix and pay for our own personal properties that get damaged because
Can I just address the tax thing? You're right, with the IDA, typically when it's a commercial type or industrial type project, you're looking at incentives to bring somebody here, and so there are reductions in taxes. That's correct when you're talking about an industrial type project. However, when we're talking about a housing project, it is not an actual reduction in taxes. It's a platform to be able to offer a constant in taxes. So they're not asking to pay less. So with an IDA type pilot, yes, the company's asking to pay less in taxes.
like
Yes.
Best Buy and
Yep,
FedEx
exactly.
and-
But this is not them asking to pay less. They're just asking for a schedule that will even out a payment. So it's confusing, I know. And then
that makes sense.
as far as the costs, the developer will pay to extend the water. The developer will pay to extend the sewer. You're going to add 40 units to your EDUs, so you put more in because how that works, you put more in. Hopefully, ultimately, what you'll do is reduce EDU cost to the residents. Hopefully, I don't know, but if it's a math thing,
I've
then
never
yes,
seen anything go down.
right. So yeah, I can see why that's, when you say pilot, people get, and upset about that for a residential type project, but that's not what this is.
Yeah. So the economic development, they're involved in not only housing, but bringing companies in
Yes,
as well.
yes.
So they
Yeah.
can give away what they can make the deals that they want to do. So they buy the property, and where do they buy the property? Where do they get the money and the funding for that?
So it depends on,
Like this
we can have a
property.
whole big, long discussion about this, but the property that Owego Gardens 2 is on was actually gifted to the IDA.
I know.
So, to look to have it developed. And when you look at economic development, are we talking about, you don't necessarily just talk about jobs, but, housing is a part of economic development, and there are ample number of studies out there that will support that economic development includes housing too. We need to have our people living here and not either driving into work here or living here and driving someplace else. So, housing is actually a part of economic development. So that's why the IDA and EDP is involved in it.
As long as it's not the people that are coming in for the housing is not a further burden on more load that we already have with.
Well, considering this land that we're talking about having rezoned is vacant land right now. How
But
much?
they own it, right?
Noble Eddies own it.
Okay.
Noble Eddies own the land.
Yeah.
The real property taxes they're paying on that property right now, I think the village portion of that's like $300 a year. So you put this development, it is going to increase the tax base. It's going to bring more revenue in. It's going to be more
Well, I
revenue.
just remember when the project was going on next door to my office.
Again, that was a
The
tax-
village bought the property, then they bought out some of the homeowners there and then demolished the houses to get everything square. And then we tried to develop it over years, and we had many studies, and we paid for all those kind of things to try to get things rolling in here. All that money spent, and then we just gave it away.
So
I agree, it's 10 years ago when that started.
So the 55 and older housing development that's there right now, do you think there was a need for that?
Yeah. Yeah, but it's changing now. Now, the second phase is gonna be, it's not gonna mandate an age. It's just.
Working family housing.
Right.
Yep.
So,
And that property is a tax exempt property right now. And so taxes will be paid on it as well, EDUs.
so
I don't-
they have the same program that this program is gonna be?
More than likely
They're actually
we've-
gonna be paying into the base?
More than likely, we've not received anything officially, but I would expect, yes. And it would be calculated the very same way as far as 581A versus a pilot.
Excuse me,
In all likelihood.
this is Section 8 housing, correct?
It is not.
Okay,
It's not.
so it's market rate housing?
It is. Sue, you want to speak to what the...
So there's a lot of confusion out in the public, and I spend probably 80% of my time in the public educating people about the difference. So subsidized housing means that a person living there pays 30% of their income. If it's $100, it's $200, whatever it is, they're paying 30% of their income annually towards the rent every month, and the government is paying the balance.
Okay.
So-
What's the balance on a 3-bedroom
So,
currently
well,
inside of
let me
the
finish a minute, because this is not a subsidized project.
Okay.
This is not, I do not have any rental subsidies. So somebody who's living in the project has to be able to pay the full rent. So the state of New York says, Sue, you can't rent to somebody who's gonna pay more than 48% of their income towards rent and utilities. So that bottom threshold that Leanne talked about is because they have to have a source of income. They have to be able to pay the rent. The reason that we are an affordable housing complex is we're getting a 1% interest-only mortgage from the state of New York. If we were to go out in the market and we were to also ask for a mortgage, we'd probably looking 6.5%, 7%. Right now it's at 1%. So our debt service is small enough that we're able to make the rents affordable. This is not public housing. This is not Section 8. There are no rental subsidies at this project.
Well, you just said the government's giving, the state's giving you a 1% loan. That's a subsidy, correct?
The rents are not subsidized. Section 8 rents are subsidized rents.
The developer subsidized.
The mortgage that we are receiving is an incentive to have rents that are affordable to this income group. It is not Section 8 housing. There is no rental subsidies available.
Would you speak to the 1% you were just talking about? I don't understand.
And this, we spoke about this at the neighbors meeting as well. This is not a burden on the public. This is not a burden on your community. The state of New York has taken money. The state, in their state budget, has set aside money to encourage for-profit developers to build low-income housing, affordable housing. If I'm a for-profit developer, I have no incentive to go out and build properties where the rents are $580, $650, $750. I don't have the incentive. I'll go build someplace where the rents I can get are $1,200 and $1,300. That excludes these small communities. So if we don't spend that money here in your community, we're going to spend it someplace else in New York State. It's not your, it's all of our, it's my tax dollars. It's everybody's tax dollars that has gone to the state of New York.
How would a
And
school
they,
system
excuse me, just a
support-
minute. And so the state of New York has a competition and says, we identify, just as they did, same type of process as they did identifying Owego is a DRI project. A commitment of $10 million to help your community get back on its feet. We have the exact same thing in the village of Watkins Glen, where we're doing a project with them right now. In their community, same type of housing to help them get back on their feet. So the 1% mortgage is the state of New York. This is a privately held partnership. It's a privately, I'm the owner. I'm the developer, I'm the builder, I'm the manager, I'm the owner. If you're not happy today, you're not happy with me. If you're not happy during construction, you're not happy with me. If you're not happy 10 years down the road because something's going on at the property, you're still coming to me. Because I'm gonna own the property. But that 1% interest-only mortgage, all that means is instead of paying this much in debt, I'm paying this much in debt, so I don't have to charge as much in rent. Doesn't put any more money in my pocket. It's all controlled. It's all controlled. I can't raise rents without approval from the state of New York. I can't take money out of my reserve account to do physical repairs. There's money set aside to maintain these buildings. Not to mention the state of New York comes out once a year and looks at everything. So the 1% is strictly a program, a funding program that is in place, much like the DRI money. If it doesn't go to the village of Owego, it'll go to some other village in New York State.
So I got one question. Just like the Pompelli girls can sell that property to you, 10 years down the line, you can sell that to someone else as well. When that happens, what would happen?
I actually have a regulatory agreement that's a deed restriction and it's tied to the deed of the property. So whether I own it or somebody else does, they're still under the same mandate.
The same mandate dictated by New York State?
Correct.
Okay, so what the community here, I believe, is asking is that the board hold off on changing this to an R3. You could proceed with an R2, but you want to be able to develop that land to R3 status, and what's that going to entail? Is that going to entail the entire 19-acre plot, or is that going to entail just the plot you're focusing on at this time?
Right.
Yeah, so these are questions that we have.
Absolutely. And you know, again, I spoke with the neighbors when I got the list of concerns. I tried to address all the questions. Certainly, going from an R2 to an R3 is what we're trying to accomplish here tonight. It's an R3 for the entire property, but if you look at the